ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ I am your host ਗੁਰਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਰਾਣਾ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਦੁੱਖ ਸੁੱਖ ਸੰਗਤ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਾਥ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ Ronnie Rich ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ
So ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਅੱਜ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ health ਤੇ how to maintain a healthy lifestyle ਤਾਂ Ronnie Rich will talk us through shortly what that's all about before we do that just a reminder ਆਪਾਂ ਕਾਤੇ ਆ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਕਾਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਰੱਕੀਆਂ ਦਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ So ਦੁੱਖ ਸੁੱਖ ਦੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ from pain to happiness or pain to pleasure as I call it ਤਾਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਮਕਸਦ ਕਾਤੇ ਆਇਆ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਤੇ because we want to help people ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ want to show you ways of how you can become unstuck and not become your circumstances but look beyond that to see what else is possible in your life ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਤਾਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਈਏ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਸੋਝੀ ਦੇਈਏ ਤਾਂ ਨਵੀਂ ਵੇ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਈਏ ਕਿ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਲਾਈਫ ਮੋਰ ਨੂੰ ਨਗਾਈਏ So we base it around the wheel of life which you might see coming up on your screen and we look at our life in terms of what are the key components that we do during our daily life or each year that sanu pata hai we concentrate on health we concentrate on work we concentrate on relationships ta rab wal nu ja spirituality wal nu is ਆਪਾਂ ਸੋਚਾਂ ਚ ਪਈਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ we sometimes over focus in one area and sometimes we under focus in some areas so you can find the wheel of life as I say each week on the internet and you can decide for yourself you know where are you at this moment how satisfied are you in those areas and this show enables you to reassess you know what could you change what could you transform and what do you want to become from that so today's focus is all about health and I'm going to come back to Ronnie Rich hi how are you doing
I'm great thank you for having me here
no, pleasure to have you back So, as many of you may remember, Ronnie and your wife Ambika were on the show back in September and initially Fitbanker came along to discuss with us how to have a healthy lifestyle. They talked about education and the science behind how you can reshape your body. So, Ronnie, remind us again how that happens, you know, what was the philosophy behind Fitbanker?
Great. So, yeah, I'd love to share how we got into it and my background as somebody being in banking and somebody who grew up not on the sports team, not athletic, not somebody who considered myself fit. And I was somebody who focused a lot on the academic side. And I did well in my studies, got a great job, and I was living a life that I thought was the definition of success, which was, you know, working for a great bank, great title, great role. And I thought this clearly is the definition of success. And about 6 years ago now, it's 5.5 years ago, while working in banking, living that life, we were thrown a curveball, my wife and I, as we were expecting our firstborn. And while the future looked bright, everything turned 180 degrees as we lost our loved one. We had a miscarriage. And that was emotionally crushing for my wife as well as for me in being able to support her, deal with her and the whole family stress and strain. And that emotional setback had an impact on my well-being, and the next day I had these heart palpitations and I ended up hospitalized. And it really got me, it was a real wake-up call for me that at 33 here I am in hospital having to undergo all these tests and ECG tests and stress tests and blood tests, and I thought this shouldn't be happening to me, not at this age. And that seeded in me.
Sorry, Ronnie, was that brought on because of the news of what you just had, or do you think it was an underlying challenge that was already there?
Yeah, I think a lot of us, our relationship to our health and what we maintain is we're in a very fragile state. So any form of setback and we'd pop. So we'd have some scare that we cannot handle. And we want to build this element of physical, emotional, mental and spiritual resilience in dealing with whatever may come our way. So in my case it was, you know, dealing with a loss in the family, the miscarriage we had. For other people it might just be changes in their career, in their job, changes in their relationship.
Yeah.
And those setbacks can have a detrimental impact on our health. So while it was a loss for us in terms of family, what we didn't want to lose out on was the lesson to be learned. And that was the birth of learning the science of transformative health, which is understanding not just about losing weight, because losing weight is a very shallow and misinterpreted area to focus on, but it's about pursuit of optimal health.
So again, I remember you talked about this, that it wasn't just a case of you'd gone to hospital and it was the palpitations. You were actually told you needed to fundamentally change your diet at the time.
Yeah, well, the medical system actually would have prescribed me or put me on some medication.
Yeah.
But I think it was the ownership I took when I saw my wife lying next to me in the hospital overnight and she's dozing off there. I got really connected to that we have to bank on our fitness because there are other people that bank on us being fit too, hence the name Fitbanker, right? So it's, of course, it's a play on me being a fat banker to Fitbanker, but it's really getting that any human being that has some sense of value, that they are someone that plays a pivotal role in their family, in their companies, whatever it is you do in society, that you're someone that people bank on you being fit, and you ought to bank on your own fitness too, is the definition of a fit banker. So anyone that values that.
And just a reminder again, how much overweight were you at that time?
So I was 108 kg at my heaviest, and I was helpless. No matter what I tried, I would skip meals, I would eat less, and I would go for 10-kilometer runs on the weekend thinking this will sort it out. Yeah. It didn't.
So in other words, yo-yo dieting, which many of us kind of fall into the trap of.
So I might lose a kilo over a month and then I've put on 2 kilos over a weekend. So, that's how it was. And I just felt I've got this unfortunate body, which no matter what I try, it just ain't working. So we had to go to town to research various things from the ancient sciences of Ayurveda and understand the science of body types within that.
Yeah.
And which is also then the Western science, which is about 70, 80 years old, where we talk of body types such as ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. And our body type has a particular metabolism. And when you understand that, then you know that there are certain foods that work for me. And more importantly, there are certain foods that just don't work for our lifestyle, for our gender, for our body type. And when you know to remove those, you begin to see drastic differences. And that was a big thing. And then the other part was mindset, like how do you have this enjoyable and sustainable?
Yeah, because then I guess it comes with the mindset is almost your commitment, right? Because most people, we all start off with good intentions, whether we know it's the start of the year or there's a wedding coming up or there's a family function or something really important. Maybe it's the summer holidays, you want to get into shape for the beach.
Yeah.
And we all set ourselves this target and then we kind of aim for it to happen almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one of the things that people are gradually starting to learn, that actually it's more to it than just going to the gym and eating the right foods. It's more about how committed we are. So what is the cause that causes the transformation, as they say?
Yeah, great. So the first few things, there are many things we look at, but to begin any transformation journey, we always say you've got to have an empowering why. Like, why are we doing this? Why do we even want to begin this transformation? So you've got to have something at stake to play for. And in my case, when we just lost our little one, and we weren't expecting at that time, as I began my transformation, I really created this context in my mind that, I'm in my mid-30s now, and by the time we have a little one, by the time he grows up for me to do outdoor stuff with, I will be probably close to 50. And at that age, I want to be at a certain level of fitness and a certain energy and strength level to keep up with our young ones, right? Him or her. And so it was like, I've really got to keep that context. My why is that I want to be a really healthy, fit, energetic, and fun dad, right? I wanted to be around. And I know many friends who've, and many of us watching may have lost our elders at a very unfortunate young age because we've just not been taught the education of how to take on our lifestyle. So that was my why. That's the first one. The second thing we need to look at is we cannot transform anything unless we actually catch the trap we're in, what I call at the mind level our limiting beliefs. So our brain is made up of our mindset is made up of multiple neuronal decisions and patterns that continue to fire up the same way, and they set our boundaries. They're like our limiting beliefs that keep us stuck in the same pattern. And I had to distinguish some of the limiting beliefs that were there for me. Growing up when I was not selected for athletics on sports day, where I was not chosen or picked in the school team for soccer or whatever it may have been, I made an interpretation and a meaning that, I'm not athletic, I'm academic. And so I focused on my studies and I ended up being great in my career, and I ended up being academically focused, and that made me gravitate away from anything that was sports related or physical activity related. So through my professional career, people say, let's go for a run, let's go for a walk, let's go for a trek. it was like, sorry, that's not me.
So did you find that you had what I always term as comfort foods? So as soon as a moment like that came up, you always go, nah, it's not for me, but I'm comfortable having what I'm having.
Yeah, well, what happens is that, you know, when we have free time or spare time, we're going to fill that gap with something. And we're either going to fill it with something that challenges us and stretches us, like going outdoors for a trek, or we're going to fill that with something that brings us comfort, which is often in front of the telly, having certain foods, maybe having certain amount of drinks, and those are actually devaluing the body. Those are feeding our desires and our wants, versus the alternate, which is actually stretching us, expanding us, and those are our needs. Our body's designed as a functional tool. As a hunter and gatherer, we want to be stretched, we want to go out there, we want to spend that energy, and we want to actually pump our body with the happy hormones of endorphins.
And you're not the only person that's seen this transformation, so you've now worked with a lot of doctors, a lot of people that come to you to naturally, you know, tell us about some of your successes.
Yeah, we've had some amazing results, you know, which you may see some of the results of doctors who've participated in our programs. They've gone through a health transformation, they know the science, they have the knowledge, but knowing that knowledge hasn't yet yielded the results. So we've had a number of doctors who've taken on the program, and in 90 days they lose, you know, 9+ kilos, or you know, 16.5 kilos, or whatever it may be, because they know the science, but if they've not had a structure in which to implement it, they're often caught up in their busy lifestyles.
And when they're losing this weight, we're not just talking over years, because I kind of hear those numbers and kind of think, my gosh, it either takes a lot of time to do something like that, because you wouldn't even naturally think in that way of how much do you want to lose. Most of us probably just look at our body size in the mirror. Certainly I used to be like that, or look in the body size in the mirror and kind of, I just need to get flat. And once we kind of see that happening, we kind of go, oh, we're okay now, we can stop dieting. We don't really have a number in our mind. So how long would something like that typically take?
You know, the thing is, bulk of my journey to lose 70 pounds, most of that happened in a 5.5 month window. And most participants, we cause phenomenal results in 90 days. But, you know, depending on where your starting point is and what your optimal health goal is, and we say this, that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So if you don't know where your starting point is in terms of not just weight or BMI, but actually going deeper, looking at what we're made up of in terms of fat percentage, muscle mass, you know, some kind of measure of your energy levels or your speed levels with running, or your strength levels with what you lift. If you have a starting point and you put a end date by when you want to achieve a certain other number, then you can measure and regular monitor that shift. And it's not just about weight loss. As I said, we don't look at what people lose, we look at what they gain in terms of confidence. We look at people that have had health issues like cholesterol, high BP, and reversing that. We've looked at people who have breakthroughs in their relationships. We've looked at people who, like one of the lovely ladies, Simran, who did our program, she lost over 15.8 kilos, went on to lose up to 20 after her 90 days, and then went on to do Mount Kilimanjaro the following year, because that newfound confidence had her step into something which was completely unfathomable by her when she first took on transforming her health.
And what keeps us there ultimately? What holds us? Because, like, again, you know, I mentioned the timepiece there, because again, you know, at New Year's Day, or like I said, when we've got this big family event coming up, many of us stay motivated, and then soon as that date comes or goes, that's it, we're like, right, bring out everything going, and then the pizza's out, the chips are out, and you know, all the junk food comes out, and we kind of let ourselves go, and then we think, I'll start tomorrow, and that tomorrow they kind of slip back into the old habits. So what is it that keeps us in check to sort of say, look, I've done all of this hard work, and we undo it so quickly, what can we do to maintain it or prolong it for longer?
Awesome. So firstly, there are three things, right? First is, I spoke earlier about having a why. Now, if your why is, I want to look good for Christmas or for the upcoming date or upcoming wedding, it's a short term. So create a longer term why. Like in my case, it was, you know, fast forward 15 years, how I want to be as a healthy dad then. So create a longer term why. Secondly, you want a structure that allows a maintained program. So there are three areas within the structure we look at, and what we call our environment, our community, and our habits. So when I talk of environment, if you look around you, if you look at how you spend your 24 hours in a day, where you hang out, where you sleep, when you sleep, where you eat, what time you eat, what type of food you have, what type of drink you have, wherever they are, that's your environment. Now, you don't need to move house or shift country or change location. You need to bring changes to your existing environment. So as you may be familiar, one of the first things we do at the start of our program is we ask you to go into your house, into your kitchen, into your fridge, into your pantry, into your cupboards, and there's a list of foods, and any of the foods there that do not match Those that don't work for your body type, you got to take them, package them, and chuck them out. That's the first thing.
That's the hardest one for most of us.
And you got to take those out, whether it's the chocolates, the crisps, or whatever it is. Because in moments of stress, in moments of when you are emotionally high or low, our intelligence is often lower. And what happens is that we make an emotional decision. So when emotions are high, intelligence is low. Whether your emotions are positive or negative, you will not make the right and informed decision. You will go for whatever's on the counter or in the fridge. Now, if you'd taken all the bad stuff out and you replace it with good stuff, with healthy, fresh veg, healthy nuts, healthy snacks that you can have or make yourself, or smoothies, you will likely reach out to those.
So are we saying here as well that when we're stressed or have anxiety, we're also addicted in some ways to certain foods, because it's almost we crave them even in those moments of lowness, if that makes sense. And that kind of further fuels our, like, as you say, adding weight back on because we're going back to the same bad habits.
Yeah, totally. So when we are emotionally low or high, what we want to do is we tend to want to not be responsible for something, an area of life that has a breakdown. And a way of escaping being responsible for that is we go to deal with something where we don't have to be answerable, responsible, accountable, which is like food, or which is like TV, or which is like some other form of indulgence, drink or drug or whatever it may be. And biologically, how that's driven is when we are stressed, our body is actually pumping with fight or flight hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And when those are high, we have a sugar spike. When that sugar spike crashes, we want to get back to that sugar high, and we tend to reach for something sugary, something salty, something high fatty that isn't a good fat for us. So that's how we make those poor decisions.
So does that identify with both whether it's sugar or salt? We can actually swing between the two depending on what we're craving and our stress levels.
Well, we tend to work from pleasing the senses. So we'll go for things that are higher in sugar, higher in salt, higher in the bad fats, and they just please the first 3.5 inches of our of the journey of the food, which is our tongue. But that's at the detriment of the rest of our vehicle, the rest of our body. So that we get to shift by shifting our environment. So make wiser choices, healthier shopping, and have that fuel and fill the space around you. So that's the first thing, environment.
Then, as you was going to come on to, I'm sure, when you're talking about community, you know, what are we looking at here?
The second one.
Yeah, who are we looking at here? Is that?
Yeah, so let's think about this community. So community is who we are often engaging with, interacting with, and spending our brain time with. And when I was at work, the people I was hanging around with, when it was a busy day, a box of Krispy Kremes would come out, or some drinks from the vending machine would come out. And if that's my community, I'll do what they do. We are by default, we follow the herd mentality. Now, today, to change your community, you don't have to ditch your friends or unfriend anyone. What you have to do is find friends that are already at or also have the same goals as you. So if you surround yourself with people that are up to transforming their health, living a healthy lifestyle, you can connect with them. What's brilliant today about social media and technologies, you don't have to physically meet up with them. You can connect with them as we do on social media. We create groups on Facebook, and these are accountability groups. And people on there are sharing what they're drinking, what they're eating, that they went for a walk, that they went for a run, they did their meditation, they slept early. And those are continuous cues and nudges to our brain to say, you know what, I've got to operate and up my standards to operate at that level.
Because I guess it's not just about where you're going, but the people you live with. Now, you may find, look, only some members in the household want to take this on, in which case that's where I think social media can play a role, and also for inspiration, whether it's recipes or ideas. And like you say, you can become more, I guess, would you say accountable in terms of being in a buddy system with somebody else to say, right, what are you doing? And you're sharing with each other. That probably keeps you motivated for longer than sort of trying to do it all on your own and then giving up, because you know, we all have those down days, you know, we all have those moments where you just think, I can't do it today. I really am craving either carbs or other bad foods that we shouldn't, but this enables us to prolong it, I guess, you know, keep going with it. Yeah,
and we say that we are the average of the 5 people we hang around with most. And you just have to look at the 5 people that most frequently show up on your news feed. And if those are your health buddies, those are the people up to transformation or training for something like a marathon or triathlon or Kilimanjaro, whatever it is, as you see them in action, those are continual cues and nudges to us. And when those aren't there, the alternate is we're out, we're partying, we're celebrating, we're having a big drink, we're having loads of cake. Those are the cues that fuel our mind and have us think, I should have some of that.
So it's not necessarily about changing what you're doing. Well, it is to some degree changing what you're doing, but also becoming aware of who you're with and what's the benefit in it for you for the long term. So like you say, if you take on the food today, actually we know it's going to have a detrimental effect 2 days later. Take alcohol as a prime example. You know, it takes longer for it to come out of the system, and we know it probably does more harm than it does good. And certain foods, you know, I just think we're not aware of it enough. You know, and I can feel for the Sangat of going, how do you decide between, you know, that looks healthy versus that? You know, is there something there that you can almost call out to go, how do I pick up on, you know, reasonably whether I have a healthy snack bar, which we perceive as being healthy, but as I've started to learn, you know, actually contains a lot of the bad sugars, or potentially missing out on an ingredient which is key for our vitamins and ions, etc. What's the cues that people should be looking out for?
Excellent. That's the third pillar, which is what we call our habits, right? So what are the habits that we're filling and fueling our day with? You know, a lot of people think being healthy is about going to the gym. On average, if those that go to the gym would probably spend about an hour in the gym. And we're being sold the myth that go to the gym, and at the beginning of the year when we're creating our New Year's resolutions, the media, the newspapers, the gyms are giving all these specials to join. Now, not to say that that's wrong. That's great to put yourself into that as a new environment, the first of the 3 pillars, but that's only an hour a day. What are we doing the other 23 hours? It's what we call the 23/7 rule, right? So 24/7, what are we doing across the week? You want to look at what you're doing 23/7. That is about 96% of our day. That has a greater impact on causing any transformation and keeping it sustainable. So right from when you wake up, and whether you meditate or whether you have a drink to alkalize or hydrate your body, to the choices we make during the day. So one of them is food labeling, which I'll talk about in a second, but I want to turn to Gurjeet on this one. And Gurjeet, ever since our last challenge, you know, got a sense of understanding Fitbanker a bit more, got exposed to some of the Fitbanker crew and family, and she took herself on and she signed up to the Fitbanker program. So from a habit perspective, I'd like to ask you, what do you think are now some of the things that you do as part of your day that you previously it was so alien to you never would have been doing them? I'd love to hear what you're doing.
So if I'm being really accountable and honest with myself, as much as everybody knows me and knows that I go to the gym, I'm a run marathons a few times, my food habits were absolutely diabolical. And when I mean diabolical, working away, being in the car a lot, I used it as an excuse to stop off at many establishments, which I won't mention here. So therefore for me, you know, it wasn't about doing the Fitbanker to take on the physical challenge, because I knew physically I could deal with that, as in go and do exercise. For me, genuinely, I took on Fitbanker and the 90-day challenge to really understand what I could do to change the shape of my body. For a number of years now, I think the last marathon that I ran was back in 2015. I did 2 half marathons last year, but I was just finding nothing was shifting my body type or my body weight. And when I started back in January, even then, I knew the hardest thing was going to be breaking my habits. So introducing such things as smoothies to alkalize in the morning, having badam, as many of you are told as youngsters, you know, soak them, peel them and eat them. That's now come into my routine. But one of the big ones for me was also sugar. So again, just as our culture kind of, you know, in tea, in Weetabix, whatever certain foods, you know, it wasn't that I was just having sugar, it was having white sugar, which I know was really bad for you. And therefore it was, you know, becoming, you know, aware that I needed to change this, and I wasn't finding a way to do it. Even stopping off for coffees, you know, it had to be full fat, like lattes and syrups as well on top of the white sugar. So I know I've come a long way on my journey, and certainly I found that the first 30 days or even the first 10 days were probably the most challenging. And now I'm in a very different perspective of where I was at the start of the challenge to where I am now. I know you've probably seen some of the pictures and some of the things that I post on social media, and genuinely that is me. You can see it, and the numbers, you know, that I share, you know, they are all very much true. You know, to think for my body type, not that I would like to think I was obese, but I was bigger than I'd wanted to be. And as I say, for me, the challenge wasn't about you know, how do I put it, physical stamina. It really was, I want to change my shape, and more importantly, really look towards my food to improve.
Awesome. So I just want to add to that is that it's not solely about weight loss, and it's not about just changing the shape as a goal. Those are byproducts of implementing healthy habits. So before we look specifically in results, I just want to not step over. I want to talk a bit more about the habits that are inside of Gurjit's program that has had her cause this transformation. So we say if you'd like your challenge or your transformation to take off to flying start, like a Boeing 747, there are these habits that we call 747, where we talk about for 7 days in a week, you go for doing a certain amount of walking and have that be integrated into the full routine of your day. So you can spread that out where you do between 40 to 60 minutes of walking 7 days a week. And that is an amount that we should all be moving. We're designed as functional creatures, functional tools, our body is. We need to be creating that amount of motion and movement in a day. So 40 to 60 minutes of that, and you don't have to do it all at once. So you can do 15 to 20 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes after lunch, and 20 minutes or so maybe after supper. So that's the first thing we look at. The second is the 747. The 4 is about 4 days we need to do some form of resistance training, so some form of creating resistance or a push to our muscle. So our muscles are such a thing that if you don't use it, you lose it. And as we age, we find and hear cases of many of the elderly getting things like osteoporosis, or they have broken a bone. And that is because the structure that's designed to protect our skeleton is our muscles. And if we're not using them, we lose them. So muscles have this natural process of what's called atrophy. They reduce in size, and if you're not engaging them, if you don't have some form of resistance against your muscles, you will not be building them. So 4 days of some form of resistance training. This could be going to the gym where you are lifting weights, or at home using your own body weight, or even resistance training like yoga, like intense yoga, where you are really pushing against your own body weight, would be great for your muscle growth.
And that was one of the things certainly for me that changed, was not, again, going back to, what I enjoyed at the gym, which was put me on a treadmill or get me outdoors running. I was doing a lot of it, and I have done a lot over many years now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was introduced to was something called HIIT sessions, and I was kind of going, they're what? And it's literally a shorter session and actually a more productive session, where that had really helped me to tone muscle and also just to burn a lot of fat very quickly. So all of a sudden my time in the gym, thanks to you guys, is like cut down from being an hour and a half or an hour to now only being half an hour or 45 minutes. And actually feeling that I've had an all over workout, because you, like you say, you tend to use more muscles, do different exercises, but do it in a really short, intense time. Yeah,
that's brilliant, because many people say, I'd love to do this, but I don't have time. And you still have the same 24 hours.
Absolutely.
But it's how do you utilize the time in the gym or outdoors more effectively, more efficiently. So this is a classic case of someone who is reducing the time in the gym, but getting more results, right? So you're getting more for less. And HIIT, or high intensity interval training, is one of the most research-based ways of losing and reducing our body fat percentage, right? Which is something we focus on beyond just weight. Because you could be day 1 and day 90, you could be the same weight, but your body composition could have altered, like your fat percentage could have come down and muscle mass gone up. That really is a healthy shift, right? And it's not just about the weight number. And the third aspect of the 747 is 7 days of recording your food. And this is the other habit where I talked about food labeling and understanding under your habits, reading food labels. So most of us, we get hooked when we walk into supermarket because some cereal or some snack bar says healthy, or says high fiber, or says no added sugar. A lot of those are a catch. They're a hook to have us take it off the shelf and into our shopping trolley. But what we miss is that those have certain other ingredients that are not great for us. So the blanket statement on top, which has us pick it off the shelf, is often hiding or misleading us to see something we should read. And the way to get to the facts is turn the box around and actually read nutritional labels. So we have there per 100 grams or per serving, how much grams of sugar is in there, how much of that is, it may not be added sugar, but it might be naturally occurring sugars, which will still be sugar for our body. It will still convert in our body to glucose. And they might have certain ingredients that are high glycemic index carbs. So that means, again, you eat it and your body very quickly converts that carbohydrate into blood sugar.
I was going to say, for many people listening to this, if you're kind of thinking, I can't keep up, or I don't understand all the technology or the terminology, should I say, that was one of the things I certainly struggled with. And if I broke it down into some simple thinking, you know, it's one of the things, again, Ronnie and the team helped me to understand was, I was going to the gym and thinking, I've been and done a session, great, I've done something productive today. But actually I took on two more things, which was I started to take notice of how many of the calories I was eating. So again, we were set a target, so I was helped to understand how many calories I was actually consuming. And then when I looked back and realised how much junk food I was eating, I was probably having 4,000, 5,000 calories a day, when actually for a female of my size, I should have only been having around 1,500. And it was easily done because of the foods I was eating at home and what I was consuming en route.
Yeah.
And thinking, am I having small amounts, but actually it was high in calories.
Yeah.
And that I've completely reversed. And then on top of that, the one thing that, you know, you've really kind of helped really educate me on, and therefore when I go to the supermarket now and I check the labels and things, was actually 3 sort of macros or stats that really mattered, which are your carbs, your protein and your fat percentages. And I promise you people, you know, I didn't know any of this stuff, or I was aware of it, but I didn't know enough about it.
Yep.
And you know, and this is the piece that you guys really support people in, helping you to not only understand it, be educated around it. But I believe that's the thing that's helped me to stay on track to going 90 days, now I know I can do it.
Yeah.
Back at the beginning on day one, I was kind of going, I don't understand any of the terminology. I have no idea. All I know is you're putting me on a diet.
Yeah.
And that was my mentality back then.
Got it.
You know, that it was just a diet. When's the 90 days going to be up?
Yeah.
And now, you know, I'm in a very different space because I've taken the time, and thankfully, you know, somebody's given me the encouragement and the support to kind of go, really assess, what am I eating, why am I eating it, and like you said, really unhooking the habits that we create.
Yeah.
Now the habits, as you said to me, came from 4 key quadrants.
Yeah.
So physical is one aspect.
Yeah.
Talk us through some of the other 3 quadrants.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of us think that it's got to do with our physical exercise and activity in the gym. And really we don't look only at the physical muscle, we look at the emotional, the mental and the spiritual muscle. So a lot of us aren't aware of that we miss out how our health is connected and correlated to things like emotional issues we're dealing with. So when we're dealing with a strained relationship, or we're dealing with a hard job, or we're dealing with about some stress about mortgage or finances, what we're emotionally worrying about has an impact in our body, in that it converts it to release of stress hormones. Those stress hormones then have an impact in pushing up our blood sugar and creating our body as this really hostile state. And our body now begins to convert and save this excess pent-up energy, which is not being spent physically, into storage in our body. And so that was me in my job. While I didn't find the job stressful in the sense that there was anyone shouting at me or scolding at me, or that I was failing at any task, in fact I thought it was quite enjoyable, I just exposed my mind and my body to prolonged hours of work.
Yeah.
And doing that for multiple years meant that my body is continually on edge.
Yep.
It's continuing fight or flight mode, and as a result I'm not present to aware of my emotional well-being or how to work on my emotional muscle. And so my body is now converting these stress hormones and the related blood sugar into storage. So it's taking that blood sugar out and putting it into storage into fat. And so this is how I was, and many people pile on that extra weight when they're dealing with stressful phase in their job, in their relationships, in maybe their own self-image. When they look in the mirror, they are disappointed or hurt or something. So you've got to not make that stress mean anything, not have that really have an impact on your well-being, by focusing on investing in your emotional well-being, which is some of what we'll also cover on getting adequate sleep, focusing on things like gratitude, mindfulness, doing meditation. Those really help and contribute to us improving our emotional well-being. Then there's also the mental, right? On the mental side, on the mental front, it's also understanding the science behind why we're doing what we're doing. So one thing we look at on our program is, like you say, you learned about macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats and so on. We also have an app that makes it a lot more easier for you to do it. bear in mind, guys, I also didn't know this. I don't have background in science, or I've not done any studies in medicine per se before I went through my transformation. I have a background in banking and finance and accounting. And I went from there to having to learn numbers for another area for my body. And that was the mental side. That's where we coach you on understanding how to timely consume, how many calories we're taking in. From those calories, where do they qualitatively come from? So are they from carbs? Are they from proteins? Are they from fats? And we now have the tools, the technology. We have apps that will help us distinguish that and get to really understanding what's beyond the packaging of the food. What actually is that thing we're consuming? So that's focusing on the mental muscle. And
just to add to that, I was going to say, and look, you know, by no stretch of the imagination do we get it right first time. I mean, how many times I've said to you, I've walked into a chip shop, placed an order, and then walked back out, because it kind of, something pings in your mind when you're trying to break your habit. Your mind will try and overwrite you and almost say, no, I don't want this. I want what I'm used to. So I can promise you and assure you, you know, it happened to me. I genuinely walked into my local chip shop and went, I'm ready to order a bag of chips. And then she said, oh, I've got to fry them. And I went, okay. And it gave me that moment to allow me to come back out and to stay on path. And it's again a similar things that's happened at home. You know, it's Friday night and family are over and you want to have pizza. But you become so much more mentally tougher because you're, you know, testing yourself of going, no, I've done the hard work. And if you're putting the time in, certainly at the gym, and it means a lot to you, you will, you know, overwrite, as you say, your mental toughness.
So to add to what you're saying, psychologically it's been demonstrated that if we practice something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. And the reason it's a 90-day program, and most programs are around 90 days, is once we've done something for 90 days, it becomes something that we can implement as a lifestyle. Now, the people that go through this challenge or go through any transformation in their life that keep it sustainable are not those that get the results right away and then flow seamlessly. Many of those may easily volley back to their starting point, but it's those that have had multiple failures, or this Japanese saying, which is, you know, fall down 7 times, get up 8. So if you tripped up on your food or you had your chips and all wrong, one thing we say is the first thing you want to do is to not make yourself wrong, not go into a state of guilt, because that again on the emotional side pumps your body with making yourself wrong, stress, worry, guilt. And it's again more of those fight or flight hormones that come in play, and that again has a detrimental effect and impact on us. Instead, you want to bring some humanity to you. Forgive yourself, acknowledge you tripped up, acknowledge what you'll do differently, and find the trigger that had you go that way in the first place to avoid that next time.
Because ultimately that's what we discovered for myself, wasn't it? There was a stress moment or a stress thing that was happening in my life.
Share what you found out.
That mine was biscuits. So every time something was going wrong, or I got news, or I was procrastinating, out came the biscuit tin. And I remember us having the conversation. Ronnie said, "But all your biscuits should have left the home." And I was going, "Oh no, mum and dad have a packet of biscuits because my dad's diabetic." And he was like, "Okay, you need to do something about that." So yeah, it was a good catch, because I became aware. Soon as something I wasn't liking or I was overthinking, I was going straight for the biscuits in the kitchen. And obviously since then those biscuits have been removed. But it kind of makes you stop and think, and it's how we do one thing in our life, is as as I've started to learn, is how we do everything in our life. And it's the relationships that we have or form with food, as we talked about earlier, that becomes our natural ways. And one of the foods that I learnt to now love, which I couldn't believe it, is mangoes.
I never met a human being before that didn't like mangoes till I met Gurjeet.
So जिन्हें उठाने पता होगा ता अंब किन्ने मिठे हुंदे हैं, किन्ने nice हुंदे हैं चुस्सन नू. So I've suffered all my life where I've not enjoyed them. For whatever reason, my whole family loved them, and whenever mangoes come out, I just was like, nope, that's not for me. They repeat on me. And then Ronnie set me a challenge, and he was like, do you think you can now try and eat mangoes? So I went along, bought some mango slices, I think it was, or fingers, and I shared a testimonial of me. Actually, they watched me eat these mangoes, and I promise you, when I put them in my mouth, they were so lovely. Didn't even taste like a mango, tasted like an orange at that point. But that's when I really believed of you can rewire and change the association you have with certain foods.
Yeah.
Like I know somebody that doesn't like avocados or doesn't like celery, but I've kind of learnt, or intuitively now learnt, to consume those foods as part of my healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, so what Gurjit is speaking of here is that how we form the relationship to food that we call taste. And we think that taste is perceived by the tongue, and we think that taste is the centralization of the tongue. But taste is way more than that. It's our emotional connection with those foods. It's our memories with those foods. It's our association of who were we with when we first tasted those foods, or what do those foods signify. Like growing up, when there's a party or a celebration, we begin to have cake or champagne or alcohol, and we have this association that when you're celebrating something, have those kinds of foods. But actually what's happening is when we're celebrating, we're having the foods that are devaluing us, right? We should be having foods that are actually valuing us, that are increasing our worth. But we, for whatever reason, as human beings are funny creatures, we've begun to indulge in what were treats, which came once a while. We now have them available every day. Where we get our coffee, there's a cake there. And something that we would have maybe 3, 4, 5 times a year when families were celebrating, we now have access to that every day on our way to work and during our lunch and tea breaks. So it's something that we have formed different associations with, and we think we enjoy the taste. All we're enjoying is that it takes us back to a particular moment and place and memory of where we first had that, and that's what we're reliving. And the exercise Gurjit did was to rewire her relationship to foods that may be healthy, but she had formed some form of dislike to, like in her case, mangoes. And in my case, it was Karela or sour gourd, I think it's called. So that was the one I got to
So
rewire.
karele or sour gourd.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think for me, I know for a long while I kind of blamed my work habits being on my environment, that I worked in food and drink industry, and that's probably where it became a challenge of, only when I've pulled away from it have I now taken on the challenge of food really seriously. But one of the things you touched upon was, in order for you to make this transition for yourself, and we're not saying this would work for everybody, obviously you need to look at where you're at financially, but it's also a sign of how we show up in our lives. Of we don't go for things that we know we need to do and almost put them off, and our careers and our goals in our life are the same way, right? The way we treat food is the way we do life.
Yeah, I think we are often in a trap where we will continue to pursue desires if we're not connected to, I guess in the quadrant we looked at, our muscles groups, was the spiritual muscle. The spiritual muscle, which is in the top right corner, we talk about our, why we exist. Like, get connected to our purpose, our raison d'etre, our dharma, right? If you're connected to that, then you will make choices around food, around relationships, around communication, around sleep, that actually serve us and this vehicle to serve our purpose. And when we don't have a purpose at play, like if I exist to empower and educate human beings to discover their unlimited potential, and I love helping people, and if I forget that for a moment, I'm going to go and indulge in something that is not adding to my self-worth or value. I'm going to have something that devalues me, because I've suddenly momentarily lost this love and connection and appreciation for the role I play for others. So we've always all got to have an empowering context and our spiritual muscle, which is why we're there. And then we will behave really differently in relationships, in our area of food, in our area of exercise or physical activity, or even finances.
So coming on to the Fitbanker family.
Yeah.
So we know there's now baby Kanea.
Yep.
So we know that the family continues to grow. How widespread has Fitbanker, from your story, from the transformation of terms of your own health, how wide has it reached it out across the globe? Yeah,
I'm really grateful. We've had hundreds of participants participate because it's online. People can participate in these programs from anywhere. I'm not a personal trainer in person training people, but it's about delivering of this education. So after our miscarriage and transforming our health, it took us 3 years to have our little one. But we say our families, our community, are the people that really come together. And all those that join us on, say, our treks, that join us on our retreats, on our leadership summits, or on our health transformation online programs. And we've had people participate from, I think, about 17 countries. We've had people as young as 13, somebody who's done it with adult supervision, and as old as 73 have participated in our program. And what's more is we've had 8 or 9 medical doctors, naturopaths, PTs, other PTs who've taken on this education, and really inside of a structure that works, a model that works, they've caused phenomenal results. And when you've caused these phenomenal results and you have this new body, the question has always come back to us, which was, all right, look at me, I've transformed, now what can I do?
Yeah.
Right? So that is something that's come up, and that led us to grow what we offer in terms of retreats, leadership summits, mountain climbs, treks, and so on.
And one of your biggest climbs that you do every year, dare I say, is Mount Kilimanjaro.
Indeed, that is what we do. We have an annual leadership summit. So this year we have it at the end of summer because we've had interest from parents wanting to do this with their kids. So we're doing it at the end of August this year. This is going to be my 4th time up Mount Kilimanjaro, and our 3rd time doing it as a leadership summit. And the reason we do it this way is not just a climb. So if anyone's listening to this and if anyone's ever interested in this, I highly recommend you get very clear that we're not just taking people up a mountain.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about working and looking at an area of your life that you'd love to transform and seeing what we can learn about overcoming some of the mountains we face in our own life. Like, you might be faced with a new change in your career. You might be faced with a mountain or hurdle you need to overcome in your relationships. You might be faced with a health setback that you need to overcome. And the mountain is like our guru. It teaches us. We learn from the mountain patience, we learn resilience, we learn how to tolerance, we learn how to be in the face of a storm, and how we can still smile in the face of that storm, what we can learn from nature. And we never actually conquer the mountain. It's our ego that we conquer, and in conquering our ego do we get to overcome the mountain.
Now, one of the things I've looking forward to in terms of Kilimanjaro, so if you haven't found out already, I am actually participating in Kilimanjaro this year. So I don't know if I'm mad or silly, but Ahoji, I will be climbing that mountain. I hope. It's 7 days as I understand it. I probably learnt more about it over the trek that I did this weekend with lots of families and friends who did a tremendous amount of trekking with me this weekend, which I thoroughly appreciate.
It was amazing trek.
It was an absolutely amazing trek. And one of the things that we're doing this Kilimanjaro walk for is obviously the charity that's based out there for the Deaf Centre. So can you tell us a little bit, because you've been working with them for a few years now, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. So this will be our 2nd year supporting them. Previously we've supported another charity. So we always say, as part of leadership development, we want to identify an opportunity to make a difference. And leadership is also, how can we empower, influence, and inspire others to contribute to that difference we want to make. So there is a charity at a school, which is a deaf center in a town at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro in Moshi. In fact, as we are on the Sikh channel, I'll share that a number of the people that support the charity are from the Sikh community in East Africa, and they're very active members of the local Lions Club and members of the Sikh community, and they are trustees of this charity. And it's a deaf center which homes about 106 deaf boys and girls, majority girls, slightly over 50% girls and boys. And unlike we have in the Western world or in the UK, the developed world, we have social services. We have people that are there to take care of people that have some form of disability or some shortcoming in their ability to learn or go to school. And there was a lady who had begun this charity, and members of the Lions and the Sikh community there come together and they're supporting this deaf center. And so we raised funds last year that's contributing to close to between $7,000 and $10,000.
Wow.
That's contributing to setting up a borehole to support them so they can get regular clean water and minimize their ongoing operational costs of having to pay for water from the council, which isn't reliable in some of the remote parts there in Africa.
And you tell me, on our day one we get to go and visit it and go and have a look around.
On day one we're going to have a workshop around mindset coaching and team building, and we're going to have everybody that comes together globally, because we have people coming to do this leadership summit from all across the world, from Zambia, from Botswana, from the UK. Previously we've had people from Spain, Switzerland, the US. So people are still joining. We're looking to have 40 people to join us. It's a big game. And so everyone's invited to join this leadership summit. We have ample time between now and the climb for people to get to a certain level of fitness, but beyond physical fitness, it's more the mental fitness to keep going.
Absolutely.
And be interested in and committed to working as a team and making a difference with the charity. So we get to see the charity after the 1 day of training, 7 days on the mountain. On the 9th day, whether we've summited or not, we get to go and make a difference to this chosen charity. We will have an aspect of seeing where our funding will go, meeting the beneficiaries. And last year we also were privileged to have them invite us to join them on some tree planting. Wow. So we got to plant some trees so that they have, you know, fruit readily available, and it provides them some shade during the day. But also a thing we're concerned of here in the West is how do we kind of cancel off that carbon footprint that by us flying out there, and that kind of addresses that. So that's why we get to do it.
And last year I was told that you guys have attempted to do something for the Guinness Book of Records.
Yes, we did. We have gone for a record of the world's highest fitness class, which happened at 5,895 meters. We are, and I don't get too ahead of myself, but we're just in the final stages of awaiting confirmation from Guinness for Guinness to endorse it. But I do know that there hasn't been a higher fitness class than 5,895 meters. The prior record was done at 5,200 on Mount Everest, and we've got to do it at 5,895. So really grateful that we got to do that. And it's also a challenge to viewers out there. You know, if we get enough of our Punjabi Sikh community, do you think we could go for the world's highest Bhangra class?
I think we should. Come and join us. I'm really excited because this is so far turning into an all-girl team, as I understand it.
So far. The guys are just late to the party.
So Ronnie here will be taking us up there. So we've got 8 lovely, the ladies and myself doing the trek. But I'm also excited is potentially there's going to be the first time a beautiful princess called a 9-year-old that will be joining us. So it will be just phenomenal that if we can not only just inspire other ladies to do this, but apni community nu, but children. It's so
from
important.
the Sikh community as well.
Yeah, so I can't name the child, but I can tell you that she will be participating, and all being well and full health, I'm sure she will get us up there with her voice. So yes, it's an amazing child.
I know while people are watching this, I know what they're really thinking about. Can I tell you what they're thinking about?
Sure.
They're worried about the food on the mountain, the toilets and the showers. And so I just want to let them know that there's going to be chana masala, we'll have some mung dal, we might have some nice rotis on the mountain with not too much oil in them. We won't have parathe, but we will have some nice roti. So a lot of people, we create this where a lot of people from wherever your background, the food is designed nutritionally by Fitbanker. And for the first time they've created a lot of foods which last year we happened to have a good number of participants being from the Asian community, and so we had some Indian foods, we had Italian, we had pizza. Pizza was only after we summit. And we also have portable toilets, chemical toilets, much like you have in an aeroplane, that are being carried for everyone's hygiene and safety. And we also had hot showers, which is priceless to be able to shower at 3,000 or 4,000 meters above sea level. A nice hot shower in that freezing cold temperature.
But they're not going to feel. They're going to be thinking, "Wow, Gurjit, you just made this sound so easy. You haven't done a trek at all."
Well, one thing we can't train for in the UK is altitude. We'll have to. That's going to be hit or miss. But I can only wish all the participants the best, and I can only wish you as well all the best in your ongoing training, and working on your body composition that you've caused some phenomenal results in.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me, Ronnie. It's been an absolute pleasure. Not only hearing about, again, all the good work that Fitbank has been doing, but how to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Thank you.
And certainly for me, this is the journey where I want to continue on, which is why I chose to do the 90-day challenge. I've got present to why do I want to do Kilimanjaro, to really enable me to, if you make a change in your life, you want to make it permanent. Certainly if it's positive, you want to prolong it and make it permanent. And when you've got the support of great people, like Ronnie says, it's all about your mindset and the people that you have around you, that it's so important. So ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਿਆਰ ਆ, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ 'ਚ, ਤਾਂ ਸੋਚ ਲਓ, ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈਗਾ, ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਮੌਕਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਆਪ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ, ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਥ ਚੱਲੋ, ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ Kilimanjaro ਕਰੀਏ। ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹੀ ਕਹੀਦਾ ਵੀ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਉਂਦੇ, ਬਟ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰੱਬ ਹਰ ਵੇਲੇ good health ਚ ਰੱਖੇ। ਤਾਂ if you can, then please do join us. I'd really appreciate it. As with always with Dukh, we try and give you new ways of thinking, new ideas, and I hope today as well that the show has been informative. being able to be insightful in terms of your health. It's not just about exercise, it's not just about the food, but combining everything, because it's a life choice you're making, people. ਆਪਾਂ ਹਰ ਰੋਜ਼ ਇਹੀ ਸੋਚੀਦਾ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਮੌਕਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਦਾ, ਜਦ ਮੌਕਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਟੇਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝੀਏ। ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਗਾਵੋ ਨਾ, please do something about it, and as always we're here to offer advice and help. Please do get in contact with myself at Sangat TV, and obviously I can put you in contact with Ronnie here. So if you've enjoyed today's show, I hope you have. You're more than welcome, as I say, to find us through our social media channels. But all that's left for me to say is Sat Sri Akal ji, and thank you again to Ronnie.
Thank you, and Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal.